okay, okay.
Let me see. Make sure it's working. Yeah.
All right, got you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, hold that. Just keep it going.
Got it.
All right, we're starting. All right, again, this is going to be on sequester. I'm just going to inform y'all some facts, and I'll give you some figures. Basically, if you're an educator, if you're in the military, work for the federal government, and again, if you're back in the States, sequester could or would affect you. So I just want you to have as much information as you can. Government. If you think the problems we create are bad, wait till you see our solutions. Kind of put that, kind of say, hey, we're waiting on the government to have a solution for us. So we're kind of in a waiting mode right now. This is a poll that's conducted by the Washington Post. Very Well, which is 18%, was 1 out of 5 people. It was like 1,200 people conducted the poll. Very Well was talking about how well they knew about sequester. Fairly Well was 35%. Not Too Well, 25%. Not at all, 21%. And No Opinion was 1%. Miss Gail Collins, and she quoted saying, "Because this was supposed to be a trigger so dreadful and dire and stupid that Congress would force itself to come up with a reasonable deficit reduction plan to avoid it, ha ha." She was a journalist for the New York Times. She's actually one of the first females to actually be the editor-in-charge from 2001 to 2007. And she also was a Republican, by the way. Sequester timeline, just to give you a brief history on what led up to today. Actually, the whole sequester thing started August 2nd, 2011 with the Budget Control Act, which President Obama signed after himself and the Republicans came to an agreement to raise the debt ceiling. During that Budget Control Act, they created a super committee, which composed of 6 Democrats and 6 Republicans, which are right there. I don't know if any of y'all recognize any of the people I have on the screen. Okay, after the super committee, they failed to reach a consensus, so misses the deadline on December 23rd. January 15th, the countdown began to the sequester. September 28th, a continuing resolution was signed, which made us avert the fiscal cliff. February 4th of this year, they came up with a Budget, No Pay Act. That's where if the Republicans and Democrats don't come to a solution, their pays are going to be withheld in escrow until the end of the year. March 1st, which is 3 weeks ago, sequester takes effect. March 27th, continuing resolution expires, which actually they signed last week, so we're still good now. April 15th, the deadline, that's the next deadline for the approved budget. May 18th, debt ceiling enforcement, and September 30th is when the fiscal year runs out. Right there, it's just a chart. I don't know, y'all probably can't see it as well, but it lists on some of the sequester cuts in each state. So I don't know if you can recognize your state or not. I think Texas, California, and New York are the highest 3, and the lowest one is Wyoming. All right, effect on some federal agencies. We have agriculture, defense, education, health and human services, homeland security, justice, transportation, and the treasury. Agriculture, about 1/3 of the workforce will be furloughed, leading to a nationwide shutdown of meat and poultry plants. 11 furlough days were planned for July, but Congress' stopgap budget has prevented that, so that hasn't happened yet. Defense, immediate effects include a civilian hire freeze. I know that has happened in the States. Layoffs for up to 46,000 temporary employees, which hasn't happened. And furlough notice was scheduled to go out March 22nd, but the new date is April 5th. They're going to say if they're going to be furloughs or not. Schools for health and education. I know it affected a lot of the Indian reservations. Up to 60% of their fundings in Washington come from, because they have no property tax. Homeland Security. Transportation Security Administration will furlough 50,000 officers, initiate a hiring freeze, and limit overtime, but that hasn't happened as well. Some Democratic theories, warning about increased crime. Seems like the Democrats are using something bad is going to happen to kind of drive their point home. We need to do something. The Bureau of Prisons, for example, He's saying he's losing so many of having to furlough his guards that he's got to bring in replacements that are not trained, so he's worried about their safety. Illicit drugs reaching U.S. soil. One of the Marines general mentioned he's worried about the air and water support, so he says he's not going to be able to have his people out there, and illicit drugs are going to come back into the country. Public health, they're talking about laying off nurses, so of course it's going to provide health for each of us. Air safety, talking about shutting down almost 149 of the towers if the furlough is going to effect. And weather and storm forecasting, talks about the new satellites that they want to put up in space to determine stuff like Hurricane Sandy, so they can see that way out in advance. But they're holding off on that to see what the sequester will do. Republican theories, they're saying since federal employees have yet to take any furlough days, they're saying the Democrats are kind of blowing it out way what it shouldn't be. Because actually all these furlough days that I've been saying each agency is going to take, none of them have started taking them yet. No sudden shock to the system. Actually the Dow was almost at its highest, like last Thursday, it was at 14,000 I think. Continuing resolution signed, so they did sign that last week. Media coverage shifting. It's shifting from shifting the blame from the personnel to more going as group-wise that we're making it right now. So that's the position Republicans are taking. Latest polling, sequester, effect the sequester on the country. Who's to blame for failure to avert the sequester? Good for the country, now it's 28%. 2 weeks ago was 34%. Bad for the country, now it's 41%. 2 weeks ago was 46%. No impact was 23% now, and 10% 2 weeks ago. In closing, I want to quote President Obama, which he made this quote on March 1st. So in terms of going forward, my hope is that after some reflection, as members of Congress start hearing from constituents who are being negatively impacted, that we start seeing the impact that the sequester is having, that they step back and say, all right, is there a way for us to move forward in a package of entitlement reforms, tax forms, not raising tax rates, identifying programs that don't work, coming up with a plan that's comprehensive and it makes sense, and it may take a couple weeks. It may take a couple months, but it's just going to keep on pushing it. And my view is that ultimately common sense prevails. Again, that's quoted by President Obama, 1 March 2013. In conclusion, I just wanted to update you on the current facts, the timeline on sequestering, and how this could affect you in the long term. Thank you.